In today's video, I wanted to begin my journey through the main storyline featured in Fallout New Vegas. It's been a long time coming for this one. I remember when I announced my Fallout 3 series, there were a couple of people disappointed that I didn't start off with this one. While having played New Vegas before, I guess I just didn't realize how beloved this installment was in the franchise. I knew the game was good and I had played it before, but getting to play through it again and immersing myself into the story, I now understand why some folks had that reaction. So for this new series, I'm gonna play through and explain the story. I'll listen to the dialogue, detail my own experiences, and work my way towards the end. Important to note for Fallout New Vegas is that there are multiple endings to this game. While I'd love to explore all of them in a future standalone video, for this series there will only be one. Which one that is, well, you'll just have to wait and see. Now, to help introduce the story, there's a fantastic cutscene at the beginning of the game, and what's more, it's narrated by Primm, so we're pretty much obligated to have a listen.
War. War never changes. When atomic fire consumed the Earth, those who survived did so in great underground vaults. When they opened, their inhabitants set out across the ruins of the old world to build new societies, establishing villages, forming tribes. As decades passed, what had been the American Southwest united beneath the flag of the new California Republic, dedicated to old world values of democracy and the rule of law. As the Republic grew, so did its needs. Scouts spread east, seeking territory and wealth in the dry and merciless expanse of the Mojave Desert. They returned with tales of a city untouched by the warheads that had scorched the rest of the world, and a great wall spanning the Colorado River. The NCR mobilized its army and sent it east to occupy Hoover Dam and restore it to working condition. But across the Colorado, another society had arisen under a different flag. A vast army of slaves forged from the conquest of 86 tribes, Caesar's Legion. 4 years have passed since the Republic held the dam, just barely, against the Legion's onslaught. The Legion did not retreat. Across the river, it gathers strength. Campfires burn. Training drums beat. Through it all, the New Vegas Strip has stayed open for business, under the control of its mysterious overseer, Mr. House, and his army of rehabilitated tribals and police robots. You are a courier, hired by the Mojave Express to deliver a package to the New Vegas Strip. What seemed like a simple delivery job has taken a turn for the worse.
You got what you were after, so pay up.
You're crying in the rain, Pally.
Guess who's waking up over here?
Time to cash out.
Will you get it over with?
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig? You've made your last delivery, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
I've always loved that intro, and while to some of you it may seem a little confusing, I promise more will be revealed in just a moment. In case you didn't know, the person who just got shot was you. However, in classic Bethesda fashion, one bullet wound to the head won't quite do the trick. As my character wakes up, I'm not quite 6 feet under the ground anymore.
You're awake. How about that? Whoa, easy there, easy. You've been out cold a couple of days now. Why don't you just relax a second? Get your bearings. Let's see what the damage is. How about your name? Can you tell me your name?
This part probably doesn't need much of an introduction. but it's the character customization portion. While not relevant to the story, I'm playing through this on Xbox, so it really does give that extra nostalgic factor. Occasionally, you might even see the odd Xbox 360 achievement pop up. I did try and disable it, but who knows if that'll actually work.
Well, I got most of it right anyway. Stuff that mattered. Okay, no sense keeping you in bed anymore. Let's see if we can get you on your feet. Good. Why don't you walk down to the end of the room, over by that vigor tester machine there.
Now, this Vitomatic Vigor testing machine is where I get to disperse my special points. For those who may not know, that's strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. I've always been a big advocate for intelligence, strength, endurance, and agility. Back in the day, I remember reading a bunch of forums on how to make some of the best builds. Essentially, you pull points out of some attributes and give other ones that extra boost. While I didn't really care for insane starting stats, I flirted with the idea a bit and moved points from charisma and luck over to perception and intelligence. The next part of the character customization comes in the form of a miniature goat test. Essentially, Doc Mitchell threw some words at me and I had to say the first thing that came to mind. Most of my answers weren't even dialogue prompts, so I just went with some of the quickest and most unhinged options.
Mother.
In the end though, those choices don't matter as much because you can always switch things around. Once that segment was done, the doc moved on to statements. I had to strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree with these topics. Again, it's just New Vegas' way of setting up a new player with a build they think is best for you. Once the Q&A portion is over, I'm brought to the skill selection menu. There were definitely some changes made between Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. For starters, they took away the big guns and small guns perk and simply added in guns. However, guns only deals with conventional ammunition, and it doesn't seem like there's much skill involved with those heavy-duty firearms anymore. The 3 perks I picked are the Holy Trinity: guns, medicine, and repair. I think I've literally always picked those 3 skills in the beginning of any Fallout game, and those are the first 3 I max out. On occasion, I've swapped out repair for science, but that might have happened once or twice when I was feeling daring. I'm curious to know if everyone else is in the same boat as me, or if you swap out 1, 2, or all 3 of those perks for others. The final part of this segment is to choose up to 2 traits. This is something I always admired about New Vegas. It's a way to spice up your playthrough without changing all that much. Essentially, every single perk, -1, has some give and has some take. For example, Fast Shot allows you to fire your weapons 20% faster, but you're 20% less accurate. The Trigger Discipline trait does the exact opposite. 4 Eyes gives you a +1 to perception while wearing glasses, but a -1 without them. My favorite is Wild Wasteland. It essentially presents the player with random encounters at random times, so you never quite know what you're going to get into. However, some of those encounters are fixed, as you'll soon see. In the end, I only selected Wild Wasteland and was ready to set off.
Here, these are yours. Was all you had on you when you was brought in. I hope you don't mind, but I gave the note a look. I thought it might help me find a next of kin. But it was just something about a platinum chip. Well, if you're heading back out there, you ought to have this. They call it a Pip-Boy. I grew up in one of them vaults they made before the war. We all got one. Ain't much use to me now, but you might want such a thing after what you've been through. I know what it's like having something taken from you. And put this on too, so the locals don't pick on you for lacking modesty. Never was much my style anyway. You should talk to Sunny Smiles before you leave town. She can help you learn to fend for yourself in the desert. She'll likely be at the saloon. I reckon some of the other folks at the saloon might be able to help you out too. And the metal fella, Victor, who pulled you out of your grave. Anyway, you ever get hurt out there, you come right back. I'll fix you up. But try not to get killed anymore.
One thing I've always liked about New Vegas is that it has a much shorter tutorial section than Fallout 3. I imagine that's not a controversial take or anything of the sorts. I will say though, Fallout 3's intro is more impactful. While it takes forever to get through, in my opinion, it does do a better job at setting up the story and having the player get emotionally involved. Stepping out into the wasteland, things are definitely different around these parts. The Mojave Wasteland is truly more desolate than DC was. There aren't many big cities to go off to or underground tunnels to get lost in. However, New Vegas has its own cards up its sleeve. Out in the town of Goodsprings, I came across a robot named Victor. No doubt, my savior from that tragic night.
Howdy, partner. Might I say you're looking fit as a fiddle? Don't mention it. I'm always ready to lend a helping hand to a stranger in need. I was out for a stroll that night when I heard the commotion up the old bone orchard. Saw what looked like a bunch of bad eggs, so I laid low. Once they'd run off, I dug you up to see if you were still kicking. Turns out you were, so I hauled you off to the dock right quick.
In terms of general observations, I've always loved the town of Goodsprings. It has just enough for the player to get started with, but not too much to overwhelm you. It's easy enough to navigate and get around, unlike Megaton. To me, Fallout 3's Megaton has always been a little confusing. Furthermore, one of the bigger differences in New Vegas is you actually aim down sights in this game. Instead of zooming in on your crosshair, like you did in Fallout 3, it now functions like any other FPS. Again, I know it seems silly, but whenever I get that Fallout itch, I'd go to New Vegas simply because I like the look and feel of the ADS better. It's the little things in these games that really appeal to me. Taking the doc's advice, I wandered into the Prospector Saloon and spoke with Sunny Smiles.
Cheyenne, stay. Don't worry, she won't bite unless I tell her to. Yeah, I guess there's a thing or two I could show you. Sounds like you need all the help you can get after what they done to you. Meet me outside, behind the saloon.
This quest is technically also part of the tutorial section, but you get a free rifle and some ammunition out of it. It's as simple as shooting 3 Sunset Sarsaparilla bottles.
Well, that's a start. But I don't reckon you came to me to learn to fight sarsaparilla bottles. Tell you what, I gotta go chase geckos away from our water supply anyway. Darn critters are attracted to it. Why don't you come along? Follow me. It's just down to the southeast a short ways.
What's nice is that if you didn't want to continue further with it, you can just end the tutorial there. However, old habits die hard, I guess, as I pretty much always go on to the next portion of the tutorial. This one is live combat practice, and I genuinely felt like I needed it. Using an Xbox controller, I wasn't quite sure what the controls were like or how it felt to be in a fight. Safe to say that combat is really smooth in New Vegas. One complaint I always had about Fallout 3 is that the combat just felt stiff and slow all the time. The rate of fire on most guns was really slow, and it felt like my character had weights tied to their feet. Probably just my fault for disrespecting the agility attribute, but what can you do?
See? You're getting the hang of it. There's 2 more wells that still need clearing. You want, you can come along. It'd be worth a few caps to me. I don't blame you. They're good eating, but that's about it. I'm heading back now. Hope I didn't miss anything good on the jukebox. Cheyenne would never forgive me. Hey, do me a favor. Trudy, she's the bartender up at the Prospector. Kind of the town mom. She likes to meet newcomers. She'd be cross with me if I didn't ask you to poke your head in and say hi.
I've only ever continued with the tutorial section a handful of times, and today was not going to be one of them. Running back to Goodsprings and entering the saloon, I walked in on 2 NPCs arguing. The man was insistent on locating someone named Ringo, and the woman didn't seem to care for his threats. That woman was Trudy, and once the 2 were done with their discussion, I stepped on in.
Well, you've been causing quite a stir. Glad I finally got to meet you. Welcome to the Prospector Saloon. Not much, other than they're a bunch of freeloaders who expected a few rounds on the house. I was able to get them to pay up, though. Of course, one of the great cons did knock my radio to the floor by accident, and it hasn't been working since. They were having some kind of argument about it, but the guy in the checkered coat kept shushing them. Sounded like they came in from the north through Quarry Junction. If that's the case, I can't say I blame them for not wanting to go back. That whole area is overrun with the kind of critters that just get mad if you shoot them. Merchants avoid that whole stretch of I-15 like it's radioactive, which it could be for all I know. I didn't hear exactly, but the leader was talking about the strip. Fellow wants to get there and avoid the 15, he'd have to go east. Take Highway 93 up.
Now, you might be curious about Trudy's argument with that fellow from before. That's actually the start of a side quest in Goodsprings. It's a pretty fascinating mission, and I've always enjoyed my time doing it. It's action-packed, you get to meet a lot of new NPCs, and to become formally introduced with one of New Vegas's many factions. While I'd love to go through some side quests in a separate video, for this playthrough I'm trying to stick to the events that mostly impact the main story. At this point, my time in Goodsprings is pretty much at an end. I'm all patched up, I've got my starting gear, and the tutorial has concluded. Taking a peek at my notes, the Mojave Express delivery order has a hint for where I'm supposed to go next. Other than talks of New Vegas and Freeside, it mentions someone by the name of Johnson Nash in the city of Primm. He might have some information for me regarding the package I was delivering, as well as the men who shot me. Before leaving the area completely, I wanted to quickly check out the local graveyard. The reason being is because that's where my character was left for dead. Victor thought it necessary to mark on my map, so figured might as well look into it. You can see where my character's grave was dug, as well as the mound of dirt beside it. However, in my opinion, the biggest point of interest was the New Vegas Strip in the background. For those who don't know, that's essentially the Imperial City, Whiterun, Jefferson Memorial, DC area of Fallout New Vegas. It's more or less the central hub. It really isn't even that far from Goodsprings either, and as the crow flies, I could probably haul myself there. However, Trudy did say that there are some gnarly enemies that lurk along the path. Given that there isn't much in the way of leveled enemies in Fallout, I probably wouldn't stand a chance. So instead, I followed the game's recommendation and traveled south. I've always felt like the Fallout games have less enemies roaming around the wilds than, say, the Elder Scrolls. However, I think that's largely dependent on in-game locations, as for example, Washington DC has a new NPC every 10 steps. It's not a bad thing either, as it's pretty fitting for the wasteland. It makes enemy encounters that much more special and thought out. Along the trek, I came across my very first Wild Wasteland event. This one I believe is a set encounter, as it's pretty much always in the same spot. There's a refrigerator out in the middle of nowhere, and inside of it, there are skeletal remains along with a suave gambler hat. For those who don't know the reference, it's actually an homage to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There's a crazy scene in that movie where Indy survives a nuclear blast by hiding out in a fridge. My guess is that New Vegas's version is probably a little more realistic. The walk to Primm wasn't too far. In fact, you could pretty much see it in the distance from Goodsprings. For the sake of storytelling and convenience, I'm going to try not to add in too much of my own personal side quests and objectives. But needless to say, there are a lot of buildings, structures, and areas that contain great loot and even better finds. It's always worth it to do a once-over in most places, as gear and supplies can run out in the snap of a finger. Not far from Primm, I encountered a small encampment of a group called the Powder Gangers. They are more or less slightly civilized raiders, mainly in the sense that they don't attack you right off the bat. However, because I stepped on one of their mines and I'm here to stir the pot a little, I decided to make some enemies. In taking out the gangers, I became vilified by their group, so let's just say that any future encounters won't go over very well. Now, part of the reason I brought up the Powder Gangers, and one of the reasons this game is so beloved, is because there are quite a few different factions that the player can join. One of them is the Powder Gangers. You've probably also heard the name Great Khans get thrown around. Of course, there are some returning factions from Fallout 3, and the most prominent groups have yet to be introduced. Although, arriving outside of Primm, I was quickly stopped by one of them.
Hey, where the hell do you think you're going? Primm is off limits. Some convicts from the prison up the road have taken over the town. Everyone inside is either dead or in hiding. What's more, there are 2 tribes of raiders causing trouble in this area as well. You'd be safer heading back up to Goodsprings. We'd love to, but they don't fall under NCR jurisdiction. Even if they did, we're in no shape to protect them. We don't have the equipment to take out the convicts, and even if we did, we need some extra hands for backup. You should talk to Lieutenant Hayes. He's in a tent down the road. Just stay on the west side of the overpass if you don't want to get shot.
That soldier was from the NCR, or New California Republic. They do their best to bring law and justice to the Mojave Wasteland, but they're not perfect, nor are their methods. I'll be seeing a lot of them as the game goes on. Not every city in the Mojave is sunshine and rainbows though. Goodsprings is barely holding it together, and while we haven't seen New Vegas just yet, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than meets the eye. One of the things I've always loved about the Fallout series is just how quickly things can change. Due to a lack of law and law enforcement, towns, settlements, and cities rise, fall, and change in the blink of an eye. That's more or less what happened with Primm. All it took was a few escaped convicts to turn the place upside down. Locating Lieutenant Hayes' tent, I went on inside and spoke with the man in charge.
I'm Lieutenant Hayes of the New California Republic Army, 5th Battalion, 1st Company. What's your business? We were sent out here to hold back the tide of convicts from the correctional facility. As you can probably tell, we aren't doing the kind of job we could be doing. Not much. They've taken to calling themselves powder gangers, mostly because they've taken to using the explosives meant to clear boulders as weapons. They got organized faster than I would have thought, most of them at least. Thankfully, the small group in town here seem to have split off from the main force, so they aren't getting anything in the way of support. The mission isn't a problem, the problem is with supplies. The convicts are better armed and organized than our intel initially suggested. I'm trying to get some reinforcements here, maybe some guns with some firepower, but shit. Things are just going slow.
One thing I've always found interesting about Fallout, and New Vegas in particular, is that the main story is often separate from the universe's politics. Unlike franchises like The Elder Scrolls, you're not forced to siding with one group, nor do you have to get involved with certain factions in order to progress through the story. While that may not necessarily hold up in the end of this game, you can make it through 90% of the missions either on the fence or completely aligned with one or more of the groups. What's more, you can side against the theoretical good guys, leaving space for an evil or corrupt playthrough. Inside of Primm's limits, I really only had to take out 2 convicts before I could step foot inside of the Vicky and Vance casino.
I don't know what it was brought you to Primm, youngster, but you might want to rethink your plans. Town's gone to hell. Johnson Nash is my name. Husband to Ruby Nash. Lived in Primm going on 8 years now, thick and thin. I'm a trader primarily, for what it's worth with things like they are. I also run the local Mojave Express outpost. Well, I don't got any work right now, sorry to say. I'll tell you whatever I can. You have a delivery order you can show me? Oh, so you're talking about one of them packages. That job had strange written all over it, but we couldn't turn down the caps. That cowboy robot had us hire 6 couriers. Each was carrying something a little different. Pair of dice, chess piece, that kind of stuff. Last word I have from the office, it looked like payment had been received for the other 5 jobs. Guess it was just your chip that didn't make it. First deadbeat we hired to do the job canceled. Hope a storm from the divide skins him alive. Well, that's where you came in. Yeah, I got this look when he saw you next down on the courier list. His expression turned right around, asked me if your name was for real. I said, sure as like a rain, you were still kicking. Then he turned down the job, just like that. I asked if he was sure it was good money. No, let Courier 6 carry the package, that's what he said. Like the Mojave'd sort you out or something. Then he just up and walked out. No idea. Sounds like you two had a history for him to act like that. And turn down the money, too. Hope he didn't see any trouble in that package of yours. Maybe he thought your name was bad luck. Enough for me to say. Well, now that you mentioned it, a few nights back, one of the townies was out scavenging for supplies. He said he saw a fellow with a daisy suit come through with some of them Great Con misfits. They was talking about a chip. Well, for that, your best bet is going to be talking to Deputy Beagle. Since they came to town, he was keeping a good bit of notes on them, and he was slinking around Bison Steve when your pretty boy friend came through. He may have heard where they were going.
Well, the plot thickens. Why did the previous courier cancel when he saw I was next in line for the job? Still don't know who the man in the checkered suit was, nor do I know much about the gang he was rolling with, other than the fact that they're these great cons. Rolling on with the investigation, I entered the Bison Steve Hotel and started looking for this Deputy Beagle. I guess there weren't that many powder gangers outside because they all seemed to be set up in here. For this instance, I probably should have tried out that new revolver I picked up as it was my most powerful weapon. However, the 9mm rate of fire was just too much fun not to use, and it worked wonders in these tight quarters. It was with these escaped convicts too that I really tried my best to loot them for all they had. I had barely any caps on me, nor did I have much in the way of equipment or supplies. At this point, Any old outfit, melee weapon, or food item would go a long way with the merchants. After getting lit up like a Christmas tree, I finally defeated all of the convicts on the main floor. Poking my head into each room, I spotted a man bound and down on the ground.
I don't suppose you came here to rescue me. I'd cross my fingers, but my hands are numb. Why, yes I am. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm in a bit of a predicament here. I'd be most appreciative if you'd set me free. Indeed I do, good sir, and I would be thrilled to share that information with you as soon as I am released from captivity. Oh, that's just marvelous. I think I'll be making my way outside now. The air's a little close in here. Oh, that's so gracious of you to offer to bodyguard me like that. But I'd only slow you down. See you outside.
Scavenging some containers and doing one last look over the main floor, I left the Bison Steve Hotel and caught up with the deputy.
Well, that was quite an adventure. We taught those convicts a thing or two, didn't we? Breaking myself out of a hostage situation, not to diminish your role in it, of course, but it was quite thrilling. Problem is, there's still no law in Primm. What are we to do the next time ruffians menace us and hold us hostage? Ah, yes. My memory is much clearer now that I'm free from my bondage. I was performing recon, gathering information on some of the powder gangers, when some great cons arrived with your friend in the suit. They were talking about some delivery they took from a courier. I assume that was you? They said they'd be heading through Nipton to Novak to meet a contact there.
Short and sweet, but still not a definitive answer. Right now, it seems like I'm playing a game of tag, and I'm a couple of folks behind. However, the Wasteland is full of surprises, horrors, and points of interest. It'll be intriguing to see where I'm led to next, what challenges lie ahead, and what kind of NPCs I'll get to meet.